Okay, so we're doing the final exam, part E, percents. So this says write it as a percent. So if you want to change this to a percent, you just times it by 100. So 0.597 times 100, and that's 59.7. Okay. Change it to a decimal, you do the opposite. Divide by 100. So 56 divide by 100 equals 0.56. Now say you forget on the test how to do that. I can go 56 and then see the percent button on my calculator, percent. And then I can just push it and hit decimal. And see, it changes it to a percent to a decimal, so you can check just to make sure you're doing it correctly. So let's do that again. 56, shift the bracket, of course, and it puts the percent sign there. Okay, that's just if you feel like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm doing it correctly. Okay, write the following as a decimal. Okay, what I want to show you first before the next one is, on our percent book, we had this. So if I want to go from a decimal to a percent, I multiply by 100. If I want to go from a percent to a decimal, divide by 100. Okay, so if you can't remember how to do some of these, look at this and use this to help you study from. Okay, that's on our percent booklet. Okay, so this is a percent, and we have to go to a decimal. So percent to decimal says divide by 100. So I'm just going to divide that by 100. 96.8 divided by 100. And there. Now if I forget, or if I want to check, I can go 96.8 and I can hit the percent button, see, and go equal SD, and it gives me the decimal. So that's just a different way to do it. Okay, change this to a percent. So I'm just going to use my fraction button. So now it's a decimal. So this, let me erase that. This is equal to 0.225. That's not a percent, it's a decimal. So if I look at this, I have to go from a fraction to a decimal to a percent. So I have to do 2 steps. So right now I'm at a decimal. Now to percent, I must multiply it by 100. So that will give me this multiplied by 100. Let's do it. 0.225 multiplied by 100, and so that's 22.5%. Okay, now the final exam is all multiple choice, so you won't have any empty boxes like this. Okay, it'll all be like this. So here it says, what is 89% of 332? Round to the nearest hundredths. Okay, so when you have 2 numbers and you're trying to find a third number, let me find the paper. Remember when we did this? We have the part divided by the whole times by the percent, and whenever we have the whole number, it's always the word of in front of the whole number. So let's look at this question. I'm going to draw a triangle because it's easier for me. Percent. I know the percent always goes here, but it must be changed to a decimal. So 89% change to a decimal and divide by 100. So 89 divided by 100 is 0.89, or I can go 89 and put the percent in, and it's the same thing. So I can use the percent button, or I can use divide by 100. So this goes here. The percent always goes here. Now this has the word of in front of it. And in English, when we have of in front of a number, it usually means it's the whole. So this goes down here. And that means we need to find the part. Okay? So if I have these 2, I multiply. If I have these 2, I divide. These 2, I divide. So I'm going to multiply these together. Multiply 0.89. And that's 295.48. So what does that really mean? If I want to make a story to help you understand it, it means the test had 332 questions. and I got 295 correct, okay, approximately. And on that test, I got 89%, okay? So the test had 332 questions, I got 295 correct, so I got 89%. Now to help you remember this triangle, okay, if I draw a triangle here like this, there's my percent, there's my whole, and there's my part. Okay, so the part is always on the top, the whole, how many questions are on the test, is always on the bottom, and the percent is always over here on the right. Okay, so did we get it right here? There. Okay. What percent, so that means we don't know the percent of 155 is this. So I'm just going to draw a triangle because I have two numbers and I'm trying to find the third. What's percent? We don't know the percent. Which one is the whole? Of, that is the whole. So 155 is the whole. And if we're looking for the percent and this is the whole, then this one must be the part. Now, when I have this, these two numbers, I divide. So I'm going to divide those two to find the percent. So 14.13 divided by 155. Wait, if there's 155 questions on the test and I only got 14 correct, that means I did pretty bad. So that means 0.09 with lots of things after the end. Now it says round to the nearest hundredths. Hundredth. There are two zeros in hundreds, so that means we only want two numbers after the decimal places. So is that 0.9 or 10? Well, one is small, so it's just going to be 0.9. And I'm going to change this to approximately because I've rounded it. It's approximately 0.9. But now, look, the answer is here, but it's tricking you, okay? It's saying, it's making you think this is a percent, but this is not a percent. We have to change it to a percent. So if I multiply that by 100, it becomes 9%. Oh, it's not there. We have to round it after we multiply it by 100. So let's do this again. Let's leave some numbers here. 116. Now let's multiply it by 100. 0.09116 times 100. Now I get 9. Now I need two numbers after the decimal. So is that 11 or 12? Well, 6 is big, so that rounds it to 12. There. So now, okay, so be careful. My math lab is going to try and trick you and say, ahaha, it's only 9, here's your answer. But when you're finding a percent, when you divide these, you get a decimal, and then you must change it to a percent. Okay? Let's do one more. It says, it says 8% of 31 is what number? So I have two numbers and I'm trying to find the third one, so that means it's the triangle method. Okay? Of, that means it's the whole. Percent means it goes here, because the percent always goes here, but you must change it to a decimal. So 8% is equal to what? Let's use the button first. 8% is equal to 0.08. And if I divide it by 100, I can go 8 divided by 100. I get 8%. So it doesn't matter which way you do it. Okay? So 0.08 goes here. So now, with this method, if I have these two things, it says I have to multiply to find the third. So I'm going to multiply. So 31 multiplied 0.08 is 2.48. So almost 2.5. Okay, so let's just look at, it says type an integer. Integer means like a whole number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so is this closer to 2 or to 3? Well, 4 is small, so this is closer to 2. But so it says So here I put a 2, but let's just check on the, let's make it a story. So if there's 31 questions on the test, and I got 2.5 questions correct, let's say, okay, we'll say 2, because it's approximately 2, that means I got 8% on the test. And that sounds right, because if there's 31 questions, and you only get 2 correct, it means you've done pretty bad. You wrote your name and something else, okay? So it looks good. 2 out of 31 is very small, and this is a very small number, okay?